At 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, my home phone lit up with a name that shouldn't have known my number. Richard Caldwell, my wife's boss at Nexus Tech. His voice was tight, business, and alarm. "Jack, is Lauren with you? She missed tonight's presentation. Big client in the morning. Her phone's off." The TV murmured, a late-night monologue punching air. The neighbor's dog barked like always. Everything sounded normal except the part where my wife was supposed to be in Boston and her boss was calling my house to ask where she was. I didn't answer him. I let the silence stretch and listened, to Richard's breathing, to my pulse, to the click of something ugly falling into place. 8 years of marriage, and the first true thing I'd heard all week was a question I couldn't swallow. If Lauren isn't at the retreat, then where the hell is she? And who picked her up when her phone went dark? Not me. Richard waited, and I finally spoke, choosing words that felt like pebbles in my mouth. "She mentioned feeling sick," I said, "because sickness is easier to forgive than disappearing without explanation." He sighed with that managerial patience older men use when they expect things to work out. "Have her call me first thing," he said, and the line clicked like a judge's gavel. I stared at the handset, hearing Father's voice about telling small lies to survive big storms. Back then, storms were mortgages and layoffs. Tonight, it was marriage weather rolling in without mercy. I set the phone down like evidence, careful, because truth felt fragile in my hands tonight. 8 years together, and suddenly I was inventorying trust, like a contractor counting nails before winter. The house hummed, refrigerator buzzing, television whispering, everything normal, except the marriage holding breath beside me. I decided to protect myself first, and that meant treating love like evidence, not faith anymore. I walked to the bedroom on legs that felt borrowed, every step heavier than drywall sheets. Lauren's side looked staged, pillow leveled, lamp straight, the kind of neatness that hides arguments and secrets. I opened the dresser, touched ring box from our anniversary, felt metal cold through memory tonight. 8 years isn't forever, but it is birthdays, hospital scares, and a backyard you built together. You don't expect a marriage to break. You expect it to sag, then settle, like framing. Tonight it cracked clean, a soundless fracture you feel in your teeth, vibrating behind silence everywhere. I sat on the bed and watched shadows move, measuring time by commercials and my breathing. Somewhere a laugh track cheered, somewhere else a man decided which truth he could live with. I thought about vows, that old church smell, and the pastor's line about honoring before leaving. Shock hardened into a plan: find proof, hold it steady, and stop apologizing for noticing smoke. In the top drawer, her passport waited, blue cover unscuffed, the photo staring like a challenge. The good jewelry was there too, pieces we insured after a neighbor's break-in, glittering like alibis. If she planned to vanish, she'd take these. That's what every tired detective show taught me. Instead, the room looked paused, like someone hit stop in the middle of a sentence tonight. I checked the safe, the emergency card, the envelope with our wills. Everything sat exactly right. This wasn't escape. This was permission slip living, a weekend pass stamped somewhere I couldn't follow. The realization cooled me, like stepping into a garage in winter, breath blooming and resolve sharpening. My mother used to say, "People save the things they plan to use again." She was. Lauren had saved everything that would make her life comfortable after she put mine on hold. I closed the drawer gently, like closing a mouth, and told myself the house could testify. My phone buzzed, a cheerful chirp that felt cruel, and her text bloomed like confetti lies. "Conference is amazing. Might extend. Love you." The words smiled, the timing stabbed, meaning bent sideways. Older men call it gut instinct. I call it learning to hear quiet part getting louder. I typed "sounds productive," then stopped, because pretending normal felt like painting over fresh mold anyway. In my 20s, I believed love meant patience. In my 40s, it also means boundaries now. I pictured her room in Boston, then replaced it with ocean light and a different key card. The beer on my nightstand tasted stale, like something that had waited too long to matter. I saved the message and stared until the screen dimmed, like a smile fading on cue. Lies multiply in light, they just pretend to sparkle, and that's how people get fooled daily. I promised myself I'd answer, with facts, not comfort, and let the truth take the microphone for once. Another buzz, more sunshine punctuation, exclamation points standing tall like little soldiers guarding a cover story. Networking is incredible. So many opportunities. The messages hopped, my stomach didn't, my eyes reading anyway. Older viewers know this trick. When words shout happy, someone's hiding a bruise behind their smile. I scrolled back months, watched punctuation grow bolder, like confetti covering a hole in drywall forever. She used to text plain, lowercase, quick. Recently, everything arrived polished, curated, branded like advertising copy. I remembered Christmas cards where we both signed, and how her loops got bigger after arguments. People tell on themselves in tiny ways. Punctuation is fingerprints when they forget to wear gloves. I placed the phone flat, as if those marks could cut, and breathed through the sting. The house felt smaller, ceiling lower, like bad news had weight and knew where I lived. I needed proof outside my head, something that doesn't use exclamation points, something with a location. Lauren barely posts, but Brooke Sloan treats the internet like a scrapbook and the town square. I opened Facebook, clicked her name, and there it was. Sunset light, cocktails, a beach behind them. The caption bragged about Cape Cod, as casual as flipping a calendar. The timestamp hurt worse. Boston has boardrooms. Those photos had sandals, wind, and a shoreline that doesn't care about budgets. I zoomed in like a carpenter checking a seam, looking for a tell-the-eye missed. Her laugh looked younger. Mine felt older. That's what secrets do. They reassign birthdays without permission. The geotag said Sunset Grill, which is not a breakout session, unless the breakout includes rum. Somewhere off camera, waves hit pilings. Somewhere on camera, my wife forgot to hide her vacation. I took a screenshot like a cop, then another, because evidence disappears when you blink slowly. My next move was obvious. Follow the photos like breadcrumbs and see where the trail ends. I scrolled backward and forward, finding a pattern. Bar, boutique, deck rail, the same amber sunset repeated. Brooke loved angles, which gave me mirrors, reflections in windows, glimpses that didn't know were witnesses. A menu corner said Neptune's Table. A shopping bag said Hyannis. None of it spelled retreat. On the boat, a hand rested near her hip, cropped but present, ownership without a signature. I remembered our first vacation, cheap motel towels and a cooler, happiness that didn't need upgrades. Money improves scenery, it doesn't fix promises, and it never learned how to return borrowed time. The more I looked, the clearer it got. I wasn't part of these coordinates anymore tonight. A bartender's face repeated photo to photo, same bar stools, same jacket, meaning she was a regular. I made a folder on my desktop labeled Insurance, because old houses and marriages need it. That folder felt like a lock clicking, something I could lean against when the wind rose. In 3 frames, the same man hovered, tall, clean lines, the kind of confidence money buys often. He wasn't front and center. He lived in edges, reflections, backs of chairs, expensive watch glints. I studied hands, shoulders, posture, like a foreman reading posture to guess who actually lifts things. His hips knew boats, his jacket knew tailoring, his grin knew it had been rewarded often. Lauren used to date men like that before me. I recognized the silhouette and the sentence. "You are temporary," the silhouette said. "You are permanent only until something shinier waves from shore." I wanted a name, because names turn guesses into anchors and keep stories from drifting apart. I saved those photos again, scared of losing them, the way we double-lock doors after break-ins. The man kept smiling across rooms that weren't mine, and that was all the introduction necessary. I told myself the next proof wouldn't be a photograph. It would be a voice answering. Near midnight, Lauren texted, "Turning in early. Big day tomorrow." The phone warmed palm like fiction. Minutes later, Brooke's Instagram story popped. Karaoke, off-key and joyful, a clink of glasses and chorus laughter. The timestamp pinned it to now, a neon arrow pointing at a lie wearing pajamas proudly. I replayed it twice, then 3 times, the way you test a stud before hanging weight. "Going to bed early," sang into a microphone, hips swaying next to men who weren't me. I felt ridiculous, a grown man counting minutes on apps, but clocks matter when trust collapses. Older folks say, "Believe patterns, not promises," and the pattern tonight waved from a crowded bar. I saved the story before it expired, because some truths vanish if you wait politely first. The house clicked as it cooled, the neighborhood settled. My decision warmed like a pilot light. In the morning, I would stop guessing and start measuring, and every inch would count finally. Something in me snapped, quiet, like a cable under tension finally giving up. I'd heard that sound on job sites when a ratchet strap fails. No bang, just a shift, and then you're holding weight alone. I stood there in the hallway, TV glow behind me, the clock doing math I didn't like. 8 years of marriage, and tonight I couldn't name a single person who knew where my wife slept. It's a strange feeling, realizing you're the least informed man in your own house. I took one slow breath, grabbed my keys, and walked downstairs like I was descending into a project I hadn't bid on. If you've lived long enough, you know, pretending things are fine doesn't stop the leak. You shut off the water and start pulling drywall. I wasn't going to beg, I was going to measure. The plan began as a simple sentence: stop guessing. By the time I hit the basement, I knew the second sentence too: start proving. The basement is my sanctuary. Concrete cool, sawdust in the air, the kind of room that tells the truth. I cracked a beer and opened the old laptop that still boots like a truck in winter. The leather recliner creaked in a familiar way, the kind you forgive when it's earned its place. I set the phone face down. No more letting it steer tonight. In construction, you learn to separate noise from signal. A squeak isn't a sag, a crack isn't always a break. But the timeline felt heavy in my hands. Call from the boss, cheerful texts, a beach photo that didn't belong to my week. I pulled up our online banking. Routine has a rhythm, money does too. You don't need to be a forensic accountant to hear the drum change. Somewhere upstairs the fridge kicked on. Down here, the truth did. I took a long breath, clicked transactions, and watched the story start to sort itself into columns. There it was, an $800 cash withdrawal 3 days ago. We don't pull cash like that. Not for groceries, not for gas, not even for emergencies. When you're 40 plus, you keep a mental ledger of your life. Taxes due, tires bald, weddings coming. Big cash has a reason you can point at. I checked dates, matched them to the retreat, and felt that cable inside me twist again. Smaller charges lined up like breadcrumbs. Tolls, snacks, little stops that make highways feel shorter. I opened the savings account, then the joint credit card. I didn't want to be right. You never do. But people older than me taught me something simple. Patterns don't lie. People do. I took a screenshot. Another. Labeled them with dates and notes like I would on a job punch list. The beer wasn't cold anymore. I drank it anyway. The screen reflected a face I recognized and didn't like. A man who just found the first bolt missing from the bridge he crosses daily. The credit card told the part cash couldn't hide. Ocean View Resort, Hyannis. Not Boston. Not a conference. Ocean View is the kind of place that sells sunsets by the hour. Couples spa, champagne on arrival, long hallways that smell like money and weekend perfume. I clicked through photos on their site, rooms with white linens and windows that make men like me feel underdressed. I pictured her checking in, laughing at the desk, telling a stranger a story where I didn't exist. It's funny what sticks. The way we once culled coupons to afford a decent blender, and now this. I copied the confirmation number, pulled the date, and pasted both into a document titled Timeline. The word made me steadier. Timelines don't cry. They don't argue. They just run left to right, patient and inevitable. I sat back, listening to the furnace hum, and realized the house felt different. Not empty, alert, like it knew I was finally catching up. Then a charge I'd never seen before blinked back at me. Webb and Associates, family law, $20,500 retainer, dated 4 months ago. Retainers don't happen by accident. They happen after a decision. I copied the date into the file, and for the first time, Timeline felt less like a plan and more like a confession stamped with a card chip. Our phones are on a family plan. I pay the bill, which means I can see the call logs that never learned how to lie. Dozens of late-night calls to a number I didn't recognize. Some short, some long enough to outpace a movie. Lunch breaks, too. I copied the number and pasted it into a reverse lookup. It returned a name like a door opening on a room I didn't want to enter. Carter Hale. I said it out loud to see if my mouth would reject it. It didn't. Older folks say names have weight. This one felt like a brick in my pocket. I scrolled back months. January, February, March, their rhythm accelerating while ours went thin and polite. I printed the list to a PDF, saved it, then saved it again, because I didn't trust clouds any more than I trusted smiles. My hands stopped shaking. A target is easier to face than fog. I had a name. Now I wanted a face. Google filled in the rest like a neighbor who's been watching your driveway. LinkedIn headshot, handsome, practiced jawline, suit that says commission checks clear, regional sales, recently divorced, condo in Hartford, a sailboat tethered to Cape Cod like a promise. His posts were all success and weather, deals closed, sunsets admired, advice about living fully that tastes sweet until you read the fine print. Photos of him on that boat, tan line where a ring used to be, a grin that believed in wind and second chances for himself. I clicked through albums, the way you check a deck for rot. Tap, listen, tap again. Restaurants I'd never afford without planning. Corners of rooms that looked familiar, the kind of familiarity that makes your stomach fall through an open stare. I bookmarked it all. The cursor pulsed on his name, waiting for me to give it meaning. In my head, a list started to form. Where he eats, where he parks, where he thinks nobody's watching. Matching came next. I laid Carter's posts next to Brooks. Same railing at Neptune's table, same bartender 2 nights in a row, same cloud bank behind a different caption. That's how you find studs behind drywall. You listen for repeated sound. I mapped dates against charges. Providence, Hartford, Hyannis. Every place Lauren had networking, Carter had a drink with a view. Crosshairs formed in my mind, not to shoot, but to zero the scope on truth. It was ugly in a clean way. No drama, just columns agreeing with each other. I wrote convergence in the margin like a teacher grading a test I didn't want to pass. My wedding ring felt heavier. I rolled it against the desk until the metal complained. Evidence, when it's good, doesn't ask permission. It just sits there, solid as a joist you can finally trust. I leaned back, exhaled, and let the certainty land. It wasn't a hunch anymore. It was a map with all the arrows pointing one direction. "You up?" Mike texted. Mike Reynolds, my oldest friend and the only bouncer who still walks me to my truck after a late beer. I called him. He didn't waste time. Heard Mandy at the Anchor bragging that Lauren's finally living her best life. Said she deserves better than a small-town marriage. There it was, the public version of my private story. It's strange hearing your life summarized by people who don't know where you keep the coffee filters. Mike's voice stayed steady, the way he was in uniform years ago, calm even when glass broke. "You want me to ask around?" he said. "No fights, just facts." I told him what I'd found. He whistled once, low, like a man admiring a dangerous view. "All right," he said. "I'm with you. When you're over 40, you learn the value of one loyal witness. It's better than a crowd." I hung up, the room quieter. Allies confirm you're not crazy. They also make next steps feel less like jumping alone. Word travels fast in a town that still remembers your first truck. A guy at the gas station told Mike he saw Lauren Monday night with a man who paid for her fuel like he'd done it before. At church, Mrs. Bowers waved from her porch longer than usual. People don't say it outright. They tilt sentences until the meaning spills. Somewhere her friends were framing this as freedom, as if vows are handcuffs and houses are cages. Maybe to them we were a sitcom, a tired contractor and a restless wife needing a plot twist. I'm not naive. Marriages break. But there's a difference between broken and sabotaged. I opened the drawer where we keep thank you cards and receipts for appliances, touched the warranty for a life we once chose together. The anger sharpened, then cooled, steel quenched in cold water. I wasn't going to throw dishes. I was going to stack proof so neatly a judge could eat off it. I opened the desktop folder I'd named insurance earlier and started building it out like a job site binder. Screenshots labeled by date and time. Bank PDFs saved twice, local and external drive. A timeline with columns. Message, transaction, location, witness. I printed key pages. Paper still matters when you're our age. It can't vanish with a password reset. I slid everything into a cheap manila file, then into a sturdy accordion one. The behavior changes got a section of their own. Phone face down, late nights, personal days. I added photos, ocean view, Neptune's table, the bracelet she only wore once at home. At the back, I left a blank page titled Confrontation, not for a scene, for notes, time, place, outcome. I locked the file cabinet and put the spare key where Mike could get it if I asked. Upstairs, the hallway light threw a line under the door. Morning wasn't far. I closed the laptop. The next proof wouldn't be on a screen. Behind Lauren's winter coats, I found a small overnight bag I didn't recognize. Not our camping duffel, not her old carry-on, sleek, new, and too light to be innocent. Inside, a black dress cut sharper than anything in her closet, lingerie with tags gone, heels still tissue-wrapped, and a perfume that wasn't hers. The scent hit like a memory from a life I didn't live. Expensive, coastal, not Boston. I laid the items out on the bed like tools before a job. Dress, lace, heels, bottle. I pictured the mirror she'd stand in front of, the hotel lighting that flatters secrets, the practiced smile. I thought about the last time she dressed up for me. I couldn't name it. That landed harder than the perfume. The bag wasn't packed for business. It was packed for being seen. I zipped it slow, filed the image in my head, and felt the house go quiet, like it was waiting to see if I'd finally admit what it already knew. At the bottom of the bag, tucked under the tissue, a receipt, Victoria's Secret, 2 weeks old, $347. Not a whim, not a clearance haul. That's planning. Married folks our age know what $347 means. A car payment, 3 good dinners, the difference between catching up and falling behind. In the margin, a sales associate had circled no returns. I set the receipt beside the perfume and thought about budgets we'd built together, envelopes we labeled for home projects and holidays. You don't buy this for Boston PowerPoints. You buy it for a room where you intend to be admired. I took a photo, added it to the file, and felt my pulse steady. Paper doesn't blink. I slid the receipt back where I found it. My phone buzzed on the dresser, cheerful like nothing was wrong. Even before I looked, I knew it would be bright and breezy, news from a conference that didn't exist. I exhaled, flipped the screen, and let the next lie arrive. Good morning. Another beautiful day at the conference. Learned so much. The message smiled at 2:17 a.m. I stared at the timestamp until the numbers felt rude. People our age know the trick. Say it loud enough and hope it sounds true. I typed nothing. I didn't want to patch drywall while the pipe was still leaking. I needed a different kind of truth, the kind that comes from someone who sees everything because they never stopped paying attention. Viv opens her pet store at 7, and she remembers details most folks forget by lunch. Cats, dogs, neighbors, late-night cars. She logs it all like weather reports. I pictured her turning keys, feeding the birds, checking the tanks, coffee in a chipped mug. I set my alarm for 6 and laid out what I'd show her if I had to. The bag, the receipt, the text, the screenshots. I didn't sleep much, but when the sky finally thinned, I felt ready. The first stop was Viv. The second would depend on what she said. Vivian's pet paradise smells like cedar chips and good intentions. Viv looked up from a parrot cage, mid-scrub, eyes sharper than any camera. "Jack Turner, you're early," she said, pouring coffee like she'd been expecting bad news. We kept it simple. "Lauren's at a work retreat," I said, and even my voice flinched. Viv didn't. "That's so. When'd she leave?" "Tuesday morning." Viv nodded, mentally marking a calendar. "Funny," she said, gentle as a nurse with a needle. "I could have sworn I saw her car at the train station Monday night." The train station points to Hartford. Hartford points to a certain condo and a man with a boat. My stomach drew a straight line. Viv went back to the cage, but her eyes stayed on me. She didn't gossip, she observed. "Might have been the same model," I offered, just to hear how denial sounds out loud at my age. "Maybe," she said, and let the words sit between us like a package neither one of us wanted to open. Viv knows patterns. "It was late," she said. "Closer to 10. Parked on the far side where folks leave cars when someone else is doing the driving." She wiped her hands on a towel, the kind of practical motion that says she's watched this town long enough to tell a story by tire tracks. I noticed because Lauren's bumper sticker is crooked. The P in Cape tilts. I could see it. I put my coffee down to stop my hand from shaking. Viv didn't fill the silence. She respects it, gives it space to do its job. Could be I'm wrong, she added, sincere, then watched me not believe it. Out front, a couple argued about a leash size, the kind of ordinary sound that makes hard truths sound harder. Thanks, Viv, I said, for noticing. She nodded at the door. That's what neighbors do. On the way out, I checked my watch. The world kept moving. So did the line from the station to Hartford, straight as a rail. I was almost at the door when Viv called after me. One more thing. Month ago, Lauren came in asking about weekend dog boarding. We don't have a dog. Said she was thinking ahead. Multiple weekends, Viv added, eyebrows saying the quiet part. Older folks will tell you, real plans have logistics. Who feeds the dog, who waters the plants, who covers the story. My jaw tightened. Even the imaginary pet had a place to be while she was gone. Did she book? I asked. Just asked questions, Viv said. The kind you ask when you're rehearsing a story you want to sound natural. I thanked her again and stepped into daylight that felt a shade harsher. That boarding inquiry wasn't a slip. It was scaffolding. She was building a structure to hold a lie tall enough to see from the next town. I put the note in my phone under prep work. Then I called Mike. When you're ready to stop guessing, you tell the friend who doesn't blink when things get loud. Mike picked up on the first ring. Been asking around since last night, he said. Mandy's been holding court at the Anchor, loud about how Lauren's finally choosing herself. Says you don't get her potential. I pictured Mandy's hands slicing the air like a talk show host, blessing headlines with half-truths. Mike kept it measured. I told the bartender not to feed it, but Jack, it's out there. He didn't have to explain it. If you've lived in a small town long enough, you know the difference between privacy and quiet. This wasn't either. It was a parade route. You want me to press? He asked. Careful, I said. Facts, not flamethrowers. He grunted approval. I'll start at the gas station and work back. That's Mike. Vet brain, bouncer patience. He doesn't swing first. He frames the scene. Before he hung up, he said the one thing I needed to hear. You're not crazy, and you're not alone. The line went dead. The resolve didn't. I headed for the truck. By noon, Mike texted. Danny saw her. Danny's worked the gas station since before our mortgage. Monday night, Mike said over the phone. She pulled in with a guy. Expensive car. He paid. Hand on the roof like it belonged there. I closed my eyes and saw the cropped hand from Brooke's photos, watch glinting like a signature. Did Danny catch a plate? Too dark, Mike said. But he said the guy knew her rhythm, how she gets back in, how she smiles when she doesn't want a receipt. That detail hit harder than the make of the car. Knowing someone's small habits is a kind of intimacy you can't buy with room service. I wrote it down, added the time to the timeline, and underlined paid for gas. When you're over 40, old school gestures mean something. Who pays tells a story. Anything else? I asked. Yeah, Mike said. Danny said she looked happy. The word sat wrong. Happy isn't wrong, but borrowed happy always sends the bill to the wrong address. By afternoon, I understood the worst part. I was the last to know. Not because people are cruel, but because folks assume a husband already has the memo, Mrs. Bowers waved extra long from her porch. The mailman didn't meet my eyes. Small towns don't hide tragedies. They cushion them with casseroles and careful sentences. When you're young, that feels nosy. When you're older, it feels like weather. Ever present, sometimes helpful, sometimes not. I stood in my kitchen and looked at the yellow paint we chose because mornings needed cheer. Under this light, it looked sickly. That's the thing about truth. It repaints a room without touching a brush. I laid out the day's findings: bag, receipt, text, Viv's sighting, dog boarding prep, Mandy's speeches, Danny's account. It no longer formed a question. It formed a story even strangers could summarize. I felt anger knock, then move aside for clarity. Suspicion had done its job. It could clock out. Certainty took the chair. I opened the insurance folder one more time and added a new document. Confrontation plan. Not rage. Steps. Where. When. Who films. What I say if he stands, what I say if he smirks. Older men know, you don't storm a job site, you arrive with a checklist. I wrote, Public place, good lighting, no yelling. I wrote, evidence first, decision second. I wrote, leave before the scene takes you hostage. My phone chimed, a dinner text from Lauren, bright and pretty, the kind that floats on top of deep water. I didn't answer. I called Mike instead. Tonight, I said, if the stars line up. He didn't ask for details. He checked his battery and his conscience. I'll drive, he said. I locked the house, took one look back at the kitchen, and felt something like mercy for myself. I wasn't going to break anything. I was going to flip a switch. The next room would be lit in truth, and we'd see who could stand it. Around dinner time, Lauren texted a postcard smile. Seafood here is unbelievable. Wish you were tasting this lobster. Lobster is not a breakout session. I read it twice, then did what men my age do when the stomach says enough. I picked up a phone and called the source. Neptune's table, how may I help you? The hostess chirped. My voice came out steady. I'd like to arrange a small surprise for my wife, Lauren Hayes. Could you tell me her table so I can send a note? Paper is polite. It also opens doors. Keys clicked. One moment. Ms. Hayes at table 12. I let that settle. And is she alone? I asked, like I was ordering water. Another pause. She's with her companion. Companion. The word cut cleaner than angry ones ever do. Thank you, I said, and hung up. I stared at the kitchen wall we painted yellow to make mornings kinder. Tonight it looked like warning tape. I texted Mike. You free for a drive? Mike called back in seconds. Where to? Cape Cod, I said. Neptune's table, table 12. He didn't swear or grandstand. He just breathed once and shifted into action like he was back on duty. I'll fuel up and grab a charger, he said. You bringing the file? Every page. We spoke in checklists, the way men in their 40s and 50s do when feelings threaten to spill. Parking, lighting, where he'd stand, when he'd start recording. We keep it clean, I said. No yelling, no scene. Mike grunted approval. Truth talks loud enough. I slid the manila folder into an old briefcase, tucked my phone into the side pocket, and checked the camera on battery again. Before stepping out, I paused at the doorway, listening to the house breathe. 8 years of dinners had lived in this kitchen. Tonight, so did an ending I could name. I locked up, met Mike at the curb, and climbed in. He nodded once. We go see, he said, and the truck rolled. The highway unspooled like a long thought. Streetlights stitched the road together. Wipers clicked once at a drifting mist. Mike drove, both hands low on the wheel, the way trained people do. We didn't need small talk, we had mile markers. When you're 30 plus, you speed through nights. After 40, you count them. We passed the exit where I proposed, the billboard for a flooring company I'd worked with, the rest stop with a coffee that always tastes like cardboard and relief. I checked the folder, then closed it. You good? Mike asked. I'm steady, I said, and meant it. Hurt shakes, resolve doesn't. Somewhere between Providence and the bridge, we agreed without saying it. No surprises, no touching, no words we can't own in daylight. The bridge lights floated into view, thin as needles, steady as decisions. On the other side waited a restaurant with linen tablecloths and a view, a story about to meet facts, and the hour we'd remember. Cape air smells like salt and money at night. Neptune's table glowed warm against the dark, all glass and soft light, the kind of place where everything whispers and nothing spills. Mike pulled into a shadowed corner of the lot. You sure? He asked. I'm sure, I said. We sat for a minute, letting the cab cool and our tempers settle. We went over the plan again. He'd stay near the entrance for a clean angle. I'd walk in alone. You text if he stands, Mike said, tapping his phone. I'm there in 3 breaths. I nodded. Through the window I could see couples leaning in, waiters gliding, a pianist earning his paycheck with restraint. I wasn't thinking about revenge. I was thinking about clarity in a place that sells romance by the course. I checked the time, 8:12 p.m. The door swung open for someone else, letting out a ribbon of laughter and roasted garlic. I exhaled. All right, I said. Let's turn on the light. From the sidewalk, I found table 12 like a foreman finds a squeak in a new floor, by listening. There she was, Lauren, hair done in a way I didn't recognize, wearing the black dress from the secret bag. Across from her, the silhouette from Brooke's photos finally had a name: Carter. He leaned in, hand on hers, his watch catching light like a signal flare. They were laughing at something small and expensive, eyes soft, the way eyes get when a room forgets anyone else exists. People say the worst pain is anger. They're wrong. The worst pain is watching someone you've loved look happy without you and realizing you stopped being invited weeks ago. My mouth went dry, but my heartbeat stayed level. I could have turned around. I didn't. I took one more look, fixed the picture in my head like a blueprint tacked to a wall, and reached for the handle. When the door opened, the music got louder. So did the truth. The hostess smiled like a painting. "Good evening. Reservation?" "I'm here to surprise my wife," I said, and the word surprised tasted true enough for the moment. We stepped into the dining room. Linen, low lamps, the ocean held at polite distance by glass. Couples lifted forks like choreography. A waiter glanced toward table 12 and I followed the look. My chest stayed quiet. My hands didn't. On job sites, the trick to precision is simple. Don't rush the cut. Walk, breathe, measure, then act. I moved between tables as if I belonged to them, past a couple arguing quietly about a mortgage, past a man telling a joke he'd told before. 10 feet, 8, 6. I stopped where the carpet met polished stone, exactly out of arm's reach. Carter had his back to me, still talking. Lauren looked up first. Color drained from her face so fast it felt like a draft. Her eyes flicked to the file in my hand, then to the exit. "Not tonight." "Hi, honey," I said softly, the way you do when you're testing a bridge that might be rotten. "How's the conference?" A waiter blinked, unsure whether to keep pouring. Lauren's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. Carter turned, confusion hardening into something that thought it was authority. "Can we help you?" he asked, voice coached for boardrooms. "Maybe," I said. "Depends who you think you're dining with." I kept my shoulders loose, feet planted like I was on a ladder, one hand free, one hand steady. The room didn't explode. It contracted. Sounds got crisp. Silver on china, a chair leg, the piano's left hand. Lauren reached for her napkin and missed it. I let the silence do some work. Silence, at our age, is a tool you learn late. She found her voice. "Jack, what are you—" "Finishing a sentence you started," I said, and the tablecloth didn't move, but the evening did. Carter stood. Men like him are trained to rise first, on boats, in deals, when challenged. "I think you should leave," he said, chin squared. "Sit," I replied, calm enough to make it sound like advice. He didn't. I kept my hands visible, the file between us like a neutral flag. "I'm Jack Turner," I said to him, then to the room without raising my voice. "Lauren's husband." A fork paused mid-air at the next table. The pianist missed a note that only players notice. "We can discuss this somewhere private," Lauren whispered, eyes darting to the hostess stand, to the door, to anywhere but me. "We will discuss it," I said. "Right here, right now, where the lighting is good and the excuses are thin." Carter's jaw flexed like a man squeezing a stress ball he couldn't admit to owning. "This is inappropriate," he tried. "So is lying," I said. My pulse stayed slow. I set the file on the linen like a menu. "Here's the evening you've both been having," I said, and slid out the first page, call logs. "Dozens of late-night conversations," I narrated, letting the columns speak. Next page, charges. "Ocean View Resort, couples spa, not a breakout room in sight." Lauren's hand trembled. The water glass chimed against china. "And here," I said, laying down a screenshot of Brooke's photo with the geotag, "Cape Cod, same night you emailed your boss about a fever." Carter tried on a grin. It didn't fit. "You've got this all wrong," he said. "Maybe," I answered, but the timestamps seemed confident. I kept my eyes on them, not the orbiting glances. You learn, past 30, that crowds don't fix anything. They just memorize it. "We're leaving," Lauren whispered. "In a minute," I said. "After I ask one question you can actually answer. Was any of it honest?" The silence that followed had shape. It sat down at the table like a fourth guest. I placed the last page between their plates. A photo of the overnight bag's contents and a tidy little receipt dated 2 weeks earlier. Planning, not accident. This is the part, I said, where I stop doing your alibis for you. I slid one more page between their plates, an email printout I'd pulled from our shared account by accident last week. Subject, exit timeline. CC, Richard Caldwell. Carter's jaw twitched. Lauren's eyes snapped to the header like it might sprout legs and run. Carter's phone buzzed on the linen. He flipped it. Patricia Hale. He hesitated. I didn't. Put it on speaker. Her voice came clean through the piano. Lauren, you emailed me 3 months ago asking how long my divorce took and what to do with joint assets before filing. You said you wanted a soft landing. You looped me in because you thought I hated him enough to help. The room didn't gasp. It tightened. Twists don't need volume. They need dates. Lauren closed her eyes. Carter looked toward the exit like it owed him something. Don't make a scene, she pleaded. I'm not, I said, and kept my voice low enough to prove it. I'm making a record. I gathered the pages into a neat stack and tapped them square, the way I finish estimates before signing. You're going to finish your dinner, I said evenly. Then you're going to drive home tonight, Lauren. We'll talk there. I turned to Carter. And you'll stay away from my wife and my house. He started to speak. I raised a finger and he found his break. The pianist resumed. Conversations rose. At table 12, the air went thin. I picked up the file, nodded once, and walked back toward the door. I kept my voice low enough for the linen to hear. Lauren, you're going to finish this meal, stand up, and drive home, tonight. We talk there. No more texts, no more stories. She stared at the window like it might become a door. Please, Jack. No, not here. I tapped the stack once, square and calm, like I do estimates when there's nothing left to add. Be at the house by 3. A couple at the next table pretended to study their wine. The pianist found his footing. Lauren's eyes glistened, but the tears didn't change the clock. She glanced at Carter, then back at me, the way someone checks a GPS and still knows they're lost. I slid the papers into the file and lifted it off the linen. Home, I repeated. She nodded, tiny, reluctant, a movement you'd miss if you wanted to. 3 a.m., I said again. I'll be waiting. The line was drawn. The place to cross it was mine. Then I turned to him. Carter Hale, right? He straightened, name recognized, spine performing confidence. Here's what happens next. You stay away from my wife and my house. I don't care how you explain your calendar, but you won't explain it on my porch. I kept the file angled so he could see the call log's gray rows. I have months of this, plus witnesses, plus locations. I also know your employer's ethics policy and your ex-wife's name. His jaw twitched at that. If you want privacy, earn it by leaving us alone. He started a sentence only men like him think will land. I lifted a finger. It was enough. He sat. Lauren's napkin bled a damp crescent on white linen. This is inappropriate. He tried again, smaller. So is Monday, I said. We're done here. I held his gaze one beat longer than comfortable, then broke it on purpose. I wanted the last look to belong to me. I walked out through the warm light into the cool Cape air and didn't look back. The door hushed shut, and the ocean kept doing what it does, moving on. Mike stepped from the shadows by the entrance, phone in hand, thumb hovering over stop. Got it, he said, voice low, steady. Clean audio, clean angle. We didn't high-five. We're past that age. He just checked that the clip saved twice, then slid the phone into airplane mode. Truck's this way, he said. We crossed the lot like men leaving a funeral, quiet, purposeful, listening to our shoes tell us we were still here. Once in the cab, he set the phone face down on the dash like evidence on a table. You good to drive? He asked. I'm good to go home, I said. He nodded, turned the key, and the engine caught. Somewhere behind us, a pianist began a new song. In front of us, the bridge waited. The night wasn't over. The hardest part was next. Back in my kitchen, the house felt awake. The yellow paint looked like bare light bulb truth. I made coffee I didn't want, and arranged the file the way I'd lay out tools before opening a wall. Order, Access, no surprises. The clock crawled, then leapt, the way clocks do when you dare them to behave. At 3:17 a.m., headlights slid across the blinds and stopped. The deadbolt clicked against a key that didn't work anymore. A pause. Then the careful knock of someone who knows they forfeited the right to pound. I let the quiet sit a second, then opened the door and stepped aside. She walked in first, hair down, dress folded into a coat, eyes doing math. We sat across from each other at the table that's seen birthdays and budgets. The coffee steamed between us like a referee. "We need to talk," she said. "We will," I answered, and put my hand on the file. The rules had changed. The room knew it. She started with the softest blade. "I feel invisible, Jack. I needed to be seen." I needed... By him? I asked. Not cruel, just level. "By someone who looked at me like I mattered," she said, voice small, shoulders squared like she'd practiced this speech in a mirror. I let her finish. "When you're older, you learn to let words spend themselves." "We eat in front of the TV," she said. "We go to bed. We get up. That's not living." I looked at the dent in the table where we once set a hot pan, at the paint sample taped to the pantry door for months we never picked. "You could have asked for more," I said. "You asked for a secret." She reached for my hand out of habit. I kept mine on the file. The kettle clicked off in the silence. "I'm not here to scream," I said. "I'm here to correct the record." Her jaw trembled. The apology hovered, unspent. I opened the file and laid down the timeline. Call logs first, then the bank statements, then the Ocean View receipt. Paper doesn't flinch. "This is when the story you told me ends and the one you lived begins." I turned the page. Brooke's photos with the geotags, the cropped watch that matched Carter's, the karaoke story 10 minutes after your turning in early text. "You can say you were lonely," I said. "You can't say this wasn't planned." "Planned looks like this," I said, opening a slim manila sleeve. "Retainer paid in May. A draft settlement spreadsheet started 5 months ago, already tabbed for house, truck, business tools, with resale values typed beside my impact driver and table saw, and a Google Doc titled Exit Plan, its access log showing your account and Richard Caldwell's 1 week before your so-called retreat. People don't stumble into documents. They open them, they name them, they share them." She touched one sheet like it might burn. "It wasn't like, it is exactly like this," I said, tapping dates until the pattern rang. I put the overnight bag photo on top, the perfume like a headline. "I want to be fair," I added. "Fair is truth." She stopped meeting my eyes. Tears came, the kind that ask for a softer verdict. I didn't move. "You're allowed to want more," I said. "You're not allowed to steal it from the life we built." I closed the file and said the sentence that changes a house. "I want a divorce." The word landed flat and final, like a door that actually latches after months of sticking. She inhaled hard, like a swimmer who misjudged the wave. "Please, Jack, we can't fix the part where you chose secrecy over a hard conversation." I kept my tone even. "Men our age know volume burns trust faster than lies do." "I'll speak to Tom in the morning," I said. "You can have whatever you brought into the marriage. Everything else we divide by the law and the receipts." She shook her head fast, as if speed could erase ink. "I love you," she said. "You loved being adored," I corrected. "They're not the same." I slid the file back together, square edges, no corners curling. "You can stay tonight," I said. "By the weekend you'll be out." Weekend? The coffee had gone cold. So had the story we used to tell. "There's more you should know," I said, because withholding now would only breed another lie later. "Carter is married. Patricia Hale." Her eyes widened at the name, then narrowed at the implication. "I sent her everything yesterday." The words hit like gravel on glass. "You wouldn't," she said. "I already did." I kept my gaze steady. She deserved the same truth I do. Lauren leaned back like the chair had moved. "His job has an ethics policy that reads like it was written for nights like yours." I wasn't gloating. I was narrating the consequences they both invited. "This isn't revenge," I said. It's documentation. Whatever falls on him, he earned when he stepped into my life like it was a showroom. A silence settled, thicker than the night. Her phone buzzed against the table, skittered, then went still. She didn't pick it up. "What do you want from me?" she whispered. "Nothing," I said. "That's the point. We're finished." She tried one more door. "Counseling. We can try for 30 days. I'll block him. You pre-planned weekends," I said. "You priced intimacy. You rehearsed alibis with dog boarding." I wasn't shouting. I was tightening bolts. "This isn't a stumble, Lauren. It's a blueprint." Her shoulders crumpled and she reached again, palms open, the muscle memory of a marriage reaching for itself. I stayed still. "I'll pay the charges back," she said. "With what?" I asked, not unkind. "You spent our money to finance a story where I don't exist." I pushed the legal pad toward her. "Here are logistics. Pack what's yours. We'll inventory the rest with photos. No key copies. No visits to my job. From now on, all contact goes through lawyers." The rules clinked into place like a new deadbolt catching. "Please," she said, and for the first time I heard fear, not of losing me, but of losing the soft landing she'd assumed was hers. I stood, gathered the file, and felt the house shift back onto its footings. "From here on out," I said, "we're strangers." Not cruel, just accurate. "You'll get a call from Tom by noon. You'll be out by Saturday. Take what's yours. Leave what's ours." She covered her face, but I didn't narrate that for her. I turned off the kitchen light and let the hall light draw a thin line down the floorboards. At the stairs, I stopped. "One more thing," I said without turning. "Don't text me. Don't show up at my work. Lawyers only." The steps creaked under my weight the way they have since we moved in. Honest, workable, never pretending to be something they're not. I locked the bedroom door and leaned my forehead against the wood until my heartbeat slowed. The house was quiet again, the kind of quiet you earn. Downstairs, a chair scraped, then stilled. I set the file on the dresser, exhaled, and let the night close. She was gone by mid-morning. Not a slam, not a scene, just the small sounds of drawers, hangers, a zipper that didn't care who paid for what. She took her clothes, the jewelry that was hers before us, a couple of framed photos that never quite fit our walls. The good blender vanished. The house didn't protest. I stayed upstairs until the engine faded and the quiet came back in a different shape. My phone stacked missed calls and long texts, apologies, bargains, weather reports from a storm she made. I deleted them without reading the last line. Mrs. Bauer's porch light blinked once, the neighborhood's way of saying, "We saw and we're not judging." I walked room to room like a man after a flood, noting what survived, what warped, what had to go. The ring left a pale circle on my finger. I pressed it once, then let my hand drop. Grief didn't roar. It clicked. The house exhaled. So did I. By noon, Mike was on my porch with a new deadbolt and a box of cameras that don't blink. We worked like we always do, steady, no extra words. He pulled the old hardware. I held the screws, the way men help when hands are better than speeches. The first satisfying moment came fast. The deadbolt slid home with a clean adult click. We mounted one camera on the front soffit, another over the back door, a third facing the driveway. "Cloud backup?" Mike asked. "Local and cloud," I said, and ran the app like I run a level. Trust, then verify. He labeled zones. I named them. Front door, back steps, drive. We tested alerts until our phones buzzed in the right rhythm. Mike poured coffee into paper cups and stood with me in the entry, each of us looking at the door like it had finally learned manners. "If she comes back?" he asked. "The house will answer," I said. "Not me." The next call came from Patricia Hale, calm voice, no drama. "Thank you for sending the documents," she said. "I filed this morning." She didn't raise her tone, she raised the stakes. "I also forwarded copies to Carter's HR and to 2 major clients. He's been warned before. This time, they'll act." I pictured his jaw going tight, that practiced smile cracking under fluorescent lights. "I'm sorry for what you're walking through," I said, and meant it. "Don't be," she answered. "He taught me to love evidence." We shared the short, dark laugh of people who've learned the same lesson the hard way. Before we hung up, she added, "For what it's worth, your restraint at the restaurant, that matters." I thanked her and set the phone down like a gavel I didn't want but had to use. Somewhere, a career that lived on handshakes and sunset photos was being audited by timestamps. Consequences aren't loud, they're thorough. He was about to find out. By evening, the friend circuit spun up. Mandy texted first, paragraphs about healing, growth, and how I should be bigger than anger. Brooke posted a vague quote about freedom and sunsets that didn't mention marriage or receipts. I didn't argue with any of it. I blocked the numbers and let the air clear. Older folks will tell you, pruning isn't cruelty, it's care. You cut what steals light so the rest can breathe. I answered Vivian's short check-in. "You okay?" with a true sentence. "Steady and busy." Mrs. Bowers left cookies on the porch and a note that said, "Locks look good." I took a walk at dusk, past the rusty anchor, nodded to two men who nodded back like we were sharing a quiet promise. "Handle yours." Back home, I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, turned the TV on low, and let the house hum. Silence wasn't punishment, it was policy. And policy is how you keep a roof from leaking again. Cleaning the office, I opened our home computer and found a folder that didn't bother to hide. Work projects. Inside were draft emails to a divorce attorney, a PDF intake form with Lauren's handwriting, and a bank transfer to Webb & Associates dated 4 months back. A subfolder held a spreadsheet with tabs named Assets, Furniture, Tools, and What He Keeps. My miter saw had a Craigslist price next to it. My truck was tagged Sell Refinance. At the bottom sat a Google Doc, Exit Plan. The access log showed 2 editors, Lauren and Richard Caldwell. The doc outlined talking points, dog boarding cover, and a calendar that matched her retreats. This wasn't loneliness wandering into a bar. This was project management. I printed everything, slid it into insurance, and called Tom. "I've got records," I said. "Bring them," he answered. "We're ready." We met Patricia at a quiet coffee shop where the espresso hisses sound like decisions being made. She arrived with a slim binder and the kind of calm you earn the hard way. I laid out my file, call logs, receipts, screenshots, the work projects folder that was anything but. Patricia read without flinching. "He always said the truth would set us free," she murmured. "He just never meant my truth." She signed a sworn statement for Tom, my lawyer, then pulled out her phone and left a measured voicemail for Marcus Webb, Lauren's attorney. No drama, just facts, dates, places, a clear map from first lie to last kiss. "I'll testify," she said. "Not for you, for the record." We shook hands like neighbors after a storm. Then she tapped send on an email that copied both attorneys. The foam on her coffee settled. So did the case. Tom texted one word as I walked to my truck. Leverage. For the first time, the weight shifted our way. By Thursday, Tom called. "Marcus wants to talk settlement." We sat in his office, blinds half open, that familiar smell of carpet cleaner and paper, and reviewed our lines. No alimony. She keeps what she brought. I keep the house, my business, the savings, the truck. When we joined the conference call, Lauren sounded smaller than the room I remembered. Marcus cleared his throat. "Given the documentation, my client is prepared to be reasonable." Tom slid the premeditation tab to the top like a dealer placing the winning card. "Reasonable looks a lot like honest," he said. There was a pause. Lawyer math. Marcus tried to keep pride on payroll. "If you'll waive punitive requests." "We're not here to gloat," I said. "We're here to end it." The agreement arrived an hour later. We crossed out 2 lines. They accepted 3 of ours. At 3 p.m., Lauren signed. I signed next. The pen's scratch sounded like a lock catching after months of rattling. It was tidy. It was enough. Consequences don't crash. They accumulate. Carter's did. HR called him in under fluorescent lights that don't flatter anyone. Ethics policy in one hand, client emails in the other. Then came the internal memo. Richard Caldwell had approved client entertainment hours that lined up with Cape weekends. HR didn't call it romance. They called it misuse of company resources. A scandal isn't a love story, it's a ledger. The The tan line where his wedding ring used to be looked like a note to self he didn't read in time. His LinkedIn went quiet. Contracts evaporated. People who toast to living fully prefer to do it far from depositions. Patricia moved with the efficiency of someone who survived more than one storm. The divorce papers served him sober, not spiteful. On my side of the fence, Mandy's pep talks got shorter. Brooke's quotes about freedom stopped getting likes. Even Lauren's circle learned the difference between liberation and the bill that follows it. I didn't celebrate. I replaced the porch bulb, answered 2 work calls, and took a walk past the rusty anchor. Mike nodded from the door. We didn't need words. For the first time in months, nothing new was breaking. The truth had caught up. I kept the house. The first weekend, I patched nail holes and painted the kitchen a warmer yellow that didn't lie to me. I fixed a sticky cabinet, rehung a crooked frame, then took a photo of a room that finally looked like it knew who lived there. Work picked up, neighbors talk, and steady travels faster than any ad. I hired a second crew and started sleeping through the night. In the fall, I met Sarah, a second-grade teacher who knows how to say what she means and doesn't need a stage to do it. We went slow. Coffee after church, a hardware store run that turned into lunch. Honest check-ins instead of promises no one can keep. One evening we sat on the porch and watched the streetlights come on like a procession of small mercies. "What do you want now?" she asked. "Peace," I said. And I had it. Quiet, earned, mine. I locked up, turned off the lights, and knew exactly what lesson I'd carry forward. I used to think being a good husband meant absorbing the hits and calling it love. Dark Cherry taught me to stop apologizing for wanting honesty. Boundaries aren't cruelty, they're how you keep the roof from leaking. What happened to me wasn't revenge, it was repair. Naming what broke, documenting it, and refusing to live under a story that wasn't true. Peace, I've learned, sounds ordinary. A door that latches, a phone that's quiet, a kitchen painted a yellow that doesn't lie. If you're standing where I stood, you have 2 doors in front of you. One says forgive, one says justice. Either way, choose with your eyes open and your evidence in order. I'm not here to tell you which door to take. You truly deserve to choose. Drop 1 word in the comments, forgive or justice, and tell me why. Share this with a friend who needs a nudge. And if you want the next chapter, how to rebuild without bitterness, stick around.